All right, so joining me is Patrick, and we have a good friend, mutual friend on the that's part of this group, Alex. Good to see you, my friend. I'm based now in Rockport, Texas. I did spend 40 plus years in Austin. Tell you a little bit about myself, and then we'll turn this over to Patrick, who's going to talk a little bit about the regulations and the policies associated, maybe a little background on opportunity zones. And then also, uh, after Patrick, our investment relation manager, Stormy Johnson, who's driving from Austin to Dallas, is going to be finding some place to join us. So basically, long story short, I had a financial planning firm in Austin, registered investment advisory practice, and worked primarily in the safe money space, helped my clients that were nearing retirement with their safe money, never really did a whole lot with their, no securities, no risk other than some real estate, limited partnerships over the years, which I'll tell you about here in a little bit. But I was kind of a safe money guy. I used what's called fixed indexed annuities. They're great for protection of principal. And as you get a little older, you transition from the accumulation stage of life to the protection and distribution stage. And I ended up, a law firm out of Michigan acquired my book of business in March of 2020, right as COVID was breaking out. And so I had been hearing this and that tidbits, like most everybody on this call, about opportunity zones. Didn't know much at all about them. And I decided to do a deep dive. I went to the Las Vegas showroom floor and bought a motorhome, which I'm sitting in today, and traveled 17 states, looking at over 1,000 of the 8,700 federally designated opportunity zone locations. So I decided, after having my capital gain, I refer to it like a Roth on steroids in so many ways. It's been called one of the greatest tax incentives to ever come out of Congress. It's a fairly new tax incentive. Came out of 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act, was implemented and certified by the IRS in 2018. So we just really have 4 years of practice under our belt. And long story short, I started looking at all these inner city, Blythe communities. I traveled up to Niagara Falls, all over Arizona, Colorado, California. I started in the Southwest where we bought the motorhome, and had made my way back to Texas, looked along the coastline here, and went all the way down to South Padre. Saw where Elon Musk was building this SpaceX, and all the speculators had already gotten down there in that zone, started driving up, the prices, and it wasn't a really good fit. Headed up to the Northeast, all through the Midwest, came back here to a town called Rockport. And this place, I'm going to let Stormy tell a little bit more about our first project here, but it was the eye of Hurricane Harvey. So made landfall here in 2017, August of 2017, and destructed half of the buildings in this Rockport, which is a fishing town. I mean, actually, it's a drinking town, they call it, with a fishing problem. But it's the #1 fishing destination in Texas. So it's a huge tourist community. And the courthouse, city hall, arts center, everything was totally demolished. So I decided to deploy some of my capital gain here. I set up a qualified opportunity zone fund in 2021 and began to raise capital to develop a project we're calling the Blue Zone Resort. So just a little bit more about my background. I really enjoyed hearing from all the different practices that were on this summit this last couple of days. I consider myself a bit of a pioneer in the self-directed IRA space, having set up an IRA in 1992 in Travis County to buy tax lien properties. Ended up going to a tax sale in 1992. Dang, it's a long time ago. And acquired 3 properties. At this tax sale, there was just one person there, an attorney by the name of Walter Winland in Austin, a legend. His son played collegiate basketball, maybe pro basketball. Wendlands. Anyway, he was there, only two of us. It was kind of a depressed time for real estate across the country. In Austin, there was 13 properties, and he told me, whenever you bid, I won't bid, and if you want to bid, then I won't. And he said, if he bids, I don't bid. I said, okay. I'm new at this game, and so ended up buying 3 properties myself. He bought the other 10, and there was only 2 years of back taxes at that time, so it's a pretty great buy. I parlayed a small IRA into a sizable IRA, and then in the 07, 06, 07 area, I started to learn about doing what I did with my IRA and my self-directed Roth. Went down the real estate road and created a Roth that ended up not being successful. It was in Waco, Texas, where I bought 2 homes in my Roth, and it never did really work. They started stealing all the copper out of the air conditioners. The economy went bad, and so real estate's not foolproof. I did in 08 purchase an apartment complex near Beaumont, Texas, a community called Bridge City, and with the intention of remodeling, expanding it to 105 units. 45 days later, Hurricane Ike had the whole area underwater, including our apartment building. So it was a really quick education on insurance. We had bought the property to renovate, so we're fully insured, and it was really worked out great as far as having funds to remodel. However, the economy changed, as we all know. 08, I've heard it come up a couple times this week, how the dynamics changed in 08. All the jobs left Port Arthur, and the city was all underwater. So when it did come back, majority of renters wanted to rent in single family homes. And so it was a long 10-year hold. We did come out all right finally, but it wasn't what we expected when we went in. So I have a little bit of experience in the development space, and I've set up a general partnership, which I'll ask Stormy to speak a little bit about as we get into that part of our presentation this afternoon. I'm going to introduce Patrick now, and I met Patrick probably a year ago or so through an organization called the OzWorks Group. He has an extensive background in securities law and has joined our team now, and I'm really appreciating and happy to introduce Patrick from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Take the floor, Patrick.
Thanks, John. Hey, everyone. The water behind me is not frozen yet, but it will be soon. That's actually just a picture of Harbor Springs, Michigan, up in the northern part of the Lower Peninsula. But we are on the western side of Lake Michigan here. I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where we have over 24 inches of snow in the last 3 days of lake effects. So for those of you that are not having to deal with this, good for you. And for those of it haven't coming to them east of us in the Great Lakes region, we're thinking about you. But no, John, thanks for asking me to number one, telling me about the Royal Legal Solutions Group in this summit. It's been awesome to listen to the speakers and the strategies and the inspiration and the opportunities that are available through Scott's group, and Tammy and Liz has done a great job. So I echo your sentiments there. But yeah, I am pleased to be on your team, John. I am in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I am a business securities financial lawyer. My law firm is called, it's a boutique law firm called the Business Law Group. We do exclusively business transactions. My focus has always been for 150 years, I say, but it's a little bit short of that, what we call alternative investments and alternative deal structuring. And that's essentially deals that are designed to accomplish not only economic returns for investors, but also tax benefits. So when I became aware of the qualified opportunity zone space, I was like a kid in a candy store from a practitioner standpoint. John, is it possible for me to share my screen? I've got a couple of slides.
I hope so.
Okay, let me see if I can do this. Okay, by the way, Dan's presentation was an awesome presentation, great strategies on 1031s. And as I was thinking about talking about, John, your project and opportunity zones, a client of mine came to mind, and that was a client that he and his partner over a course of about 30 to 35 years, they started doing real estate investments in the Midwest and in the Quad Cities area of Illinois and Iowa. And they had a business, and they did it, and they kept rolling 1030 investments into other properties, and they developed eventually a portfolio of over 500 single family residential investment properties that they would lease out on a rent to own basis. And they're very successful. 500 portfolios, all within a radius of about 45 miles. So they pretty much own that market, and that's been great. And because of Dan's strategy with 1031s, they were able to do that. But I got talking to them because they are now wanting to not continue to roll into real estate, but they own all of the title in their real estate in a company. And they're saying, we would like to exit our company, but we have no basis in it. So how can we get out of our company and still do what we did with 1031s? That is, defer our capital gains or not pay capital gains. And so that's when we started talking about qualified opportunity zones. And I'm going to skip ahead to this. The real reason for this benefit here is that with a qualified opportunity zone investment, you don't have to invest real estate. You have a capital gain from any transaction. It could be sale of a business, it could be sale of stock, it could be sale of Bitcoin. Any capital gain, short-term, long-term, it does not matter. Through this program, if you make a qualifying investment, then you will be able to defer your gain. And that gain deferral is the first tax benefit of 3 parts of tax benefits out of the qualified opportunity zone space. Now that gain, unfortunately, isn't forever. It's only till tax year 2026, at which point in time, everybody that did a deferred gain in the opportunity zone space will have to pay tax on that capital gain at the then applicable capital gain rate. So it's a partial gain there, but the story's not over yet. In the early part of the legislation, and John mentioned that it really only went effective in 2018. They didn't write the regulations until 2019. So we've only been at this for like 2.5 years, and there's actually pending legislation. It's not been introduced yet, but it's pending in Congress to lengthen the program, extend the program. So 2026 is not the year that you have to necessarily pay your taxes, but they're trying to kick it forward a few years. But in the early years, if you held your investment, your qualifying opportunity zone investment, for a total of 7 years, you got a 15% step up in basis in that investment when you had to pay the tax in 2026, which would be a 15% discount on your capital gains. That unfortunately has gone away because you had to have a 7-year hold. You had to have a 5-year hold prior to 2026 in order to get that basis step up. So that's not available anymore. But the third benefit is the one that's really unique and what everybody's looking at and so excited about qualified opportunity zone investments. And that is, if you have a total of a 10-year hold in your qualified opportunity zone investment, and you have a total of 10 years, then after that time, you can either elect or you can exit the transaction, and whatever the capital gain is at that time, let's say it was 5 times your original investment, then all of that gain will be tax-free. You don't have to roll it into another investment. You don't have to die. It's just tax-free. And for a real estate investment, which a lot of real estate is being developed in this program, there is no recapture of depreciation. So those factors are huge in terms of the benefits of qualified opportunity zones. So looking real close back, just want to say, the whole purpose of the IRS giving us this benefit is not because they want to give us more money in our pockets. It's because they have a policy of trying to develop these areas like Rockport that was devastated with the Hurricane Harvey. And so all of the governors in all the states in the country could nominate census tracts that are lower income, economically distressed areas to be opportunity zones. and a bunch of them made it in every state. Every state has opportunity zones. You can see in this screen, hopefully the pink stuff is all opportunity zones throughout the US. They came from the 2010 census tract, and that is what they will be unless the new legislation adds additional opportunity zones. But to get the investment done properly and compliantly is quite complex, as John mentioned. John has established what's called a qualified opportunity fund, which is a vehicle that needs to be in place before an investor can access the opportunity zone tax benefits and gain exclusion for a 10-year hold. Without that, the benefits will not occur. So the investment has to be from an investor who actually has a gain from another transaction, sale of business, sale of Bitcoin, sale of stock, whatever, invests in John's qualified opportunity zone fund, and that fund then invests in a qualified business that is developed with the fund's investment in the business, which is John's project called the Blue Zone Resort. So I think this is a great example, John, your project, and Stormy's going to talk about this in a minute, and I'll be around to answer any more technical questions if there are any about, how do you access this, and can anybody invest in John's fund, and what do you have to do about your gain? When does it have to occur? There are a lot of rules, but I'll save any more detail on that till, with your permission, John, till the Q&A.
Yeah, that absolutely sounds good.
Okay.
There is
so what we're doing is we're trying to defer gain from an unrelated transaction that created a capital gain anywhere, and I want to defer it till the end of 2026 at a minimum, but I want to have a long-term hold, and in that long-term hold, if I go 3, 4, 5x on my investment, I can exit then tax-free. That's what we're trying to accomplish with no recapture. So Blue Zone Resort is a great project to do this in, because not only is it in an area that needs to be developed and is being developed economically, it was devastated by Hurricane Harvey, but this is an exciting project. Stormy, hopefully you can tell us a little bit more about it.
Before you do, Stormy, let me jump in here and ask if y'all would put in the chat box. I have a question from everyone. If you could tell me how many capital gain tax brackets there are, either by a show of a number, right in the chat box, how many capital gains tax brackets. Go ahead, Stormy. Where are you located today right now, Stormy? I know you're on your way to Dallas.
Yeah, okay. Apologize for jumping on a little bit late. Yeah, we drove in from Lago Vista to Dallas. A friend of mine's son's having a wedding, and we got in about 12:59, and I jumped on the computer, so I apologize for being a little bit tardy. But anyway, so I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then we'll go into what the Blue Zone or what the Coastal Bend Opportunity Zone Fund is all about. So again, my name is Stormy Johnson. I live in a little town called Lago Vista, which is north and west of Austin, Texas. I'm a Central Texas boy, grew up there, and not born there, but raised there. And initially, I got involved in real estate through what we call fix and flip, or flippers. And so I had an insurance agency. It was doing fine, and on my spare time and spare weekends, I would fix and flip homes because it was very therapeutic for me, and it also made me a couple of bucks. So I do have some regrets, John. The real estate market in Central Texas and Austin has been wonderful for a long time, even though we've slowed just a little bit. But yeah, if I owned about half of the inventory that I sold, I'd be in fantastic shape. But anyway, at the time, it made sense. So fast forward, I had an insurance agency, primarily property and casualty, with a little bit of life insurance and annuities, and I've got my securities license. I sold it in January. Actually, it'll be December 1st of last year. Officially sold it December 1 of 2021. And I talked to my CPA prior to the sell, and just to I knew it was going to be painful to write the check to the IRS, but that's it's good and bad, right? So I started looking around for other options, and actually Opportunity Zone wasn't even one I was thinking about, but I was thinking about a lot of different things. One, what I was going to do with my broker, who I was going to hang my license with as a broker. Long story short, I reached out to John because he was a member. I was the president of the North Lake Chamber of Commerce, North Lake Travis Chamber of Commerce. John was a member once upon a time. I was on his email list, reached out to him about a couple of other unrelated items. And then we started talking. He goes, what do you know about opportunity zones? And I said, well, about nothing. And so he introduced me to the concept. And then I started doing my due diligence, probably, I want to say right around January, February of this year of 2022. And so John introduced me to it, and then I started doing a lot of online research, and there's a lot of opportunity zones. I think there's like 8,800 or somewhere out there. So I looked and talked to a lot of people. Some were what we call shovel ready. Some were a little bit into the development stage. I was amazed at how many are out there, and and what was out there, where they were out there, and what actually truly amazed at some of the places that qualified. So fast forward, I did a bunch of research, and finally I said, you know what, this one in Rockport that John talked about does look attractive, but until I meet him, one-on-one and see the whole area. And I was very familiar with Rockport. I always call it the sleepy fishing village. And if you want to go catch fish, you go down to Rockport. And so anyway, I went down there and saw what it looked like. And I was like, okay, so this looks like a really, really, really good opportunity. So it's softened the tax blow that I was going to take from the capital gain that I had. And it was a no-brainer, even if it wasn't a capital gain, John. I thought, you know what, 8% preferred rate plus a 3 to 4 to 5 times on my money. Knowing the area in Rockport, it was nice to be able to not have to write the IRS a bigger check. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, I've introduced it to friends, family, and other folks who don't necessarily have a capital gain, right? But still want to invest in the fund. Okay. So what I'd like to do now is hopefully I can figure out how to share screen, and I'll introduce you to the Coastal Bend opportunity. And both John and I are going to talk over this, right, John?
Correct.
Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
We can? Okay, good. All right. Just want to make sure here.
While you're teeing that up, I'm going to, didn't get a lot of response from y'all, but there's actually 3 capital gains tax brackets. I wasn't aware of that till I experienced it. There's a 0% capital gains bracket. And I'll tell you an example real quick. I had a client and friend that sold some farmland, believe it or not, outside of Austin for $70,000 an acre. For 20 acres, had $1 million capital gain. And since his wife and he and his wife's income, earned income, taxable income was under 84,000, they were in the 0% capital gain tax on that $1 million gain. Now, I'm not a CPA. Don't take anything here for legal or tax advice, but there are 3 capital gains tax brackets. Back to you, Stormy. Volume is up.
You may turn it down more.
Yep. There you go.
So this is the latest rendering, right? That's the prior rendering, correct? Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
So this is our mixed use development, and this is the commercial component that's going to go in. Well, it's going in right now, right, John? I mean, we're about there, right? Aren't we? And the permits.
Actually, we are not permitted. We're not shovel ready yet, but we do have the engineering, civil, drainage plan ready to submit by the end of this month. Within the next couple of weeks, we should have our engineered site plan, and we're hoping to break ground in Q1 2023. A spa component on the 2nd floor, and then the 3rd floor is a rooftop lounge. You'll see here in just a minute. The first floor, we're building a conference center as well. So it's called the Blue Zone Resort and Conference Center. The community here is definitely a weekend. It's kind of doors roll up, and there's not many people here during the week, but it's just off the charts. There's sometimes as many as 40,000 visitors. Short-term rental is the biggest, highest, and best use. But we didn't want to make it just another short-term rental on this site. We wanted to do something different. And thus we have a mixed-use Blue Zone resort with a more of a higher-end package and try to keep our guests on site. And the conference space will be, might fast forward over there to minute 2.5, Stormy.
Oh, sorry.
The conference center will be designed to help bring in corporate events during the middle of the week when we'll have high vacancies.
Yeah, I did want to mention one thing that we've actually, that was the initial design of the interior, and we're definitely going a lot different on that, right, John? We're working with a Deanna Warwick's firm currently on that.
Correct.
Regarding the the build out, and definitely gonna spice it up quite a bit. Okay, so there is.
Yeah, the place had an existing hotel. It's in the hotel district, and it got demolished by Hurricane Harvey, and so it didn't get demolished, it got destroyed, and we ended up demolishing it. But this is less than a mile, 13 blocks away to the Art Center and the harbor. Go ahead, that's where I'll turn it back over to you, Stormy.
Okay, yeah, and it's adjacent to the Rockport Cultural Arts District. John actually lives about a block away from the development, right, John? I thought it was 2 blocks, but it's actually a block away.
Yep.
And the development size is a little bit over 2.5 acres. So we just saw that. And the Arts District is adjacent, hotels, restaurants, mainly. But one thing, John, you and I have talked about this before. Rockport doesn't want big hotels. Am I correct on that?
Yes. In fact, I'll mention that land to the right of that harbor right now is owned by the Bass Brothers. And over the years, they own an island between this bay and the Gulf of Mexico called San Jose Island. Over 100 years, the Bass Brothers are a very famous oil family, wealthy family out of Fort Worth. That's the property they own right there. You're looking at it now in the video. It's 5 acres. It's earmarked as a very high-end resort, and the city has really has not been cooperating. It took us 5 months to get our site rezoned. We had a partial zoning of R6 hotel on the front third of our site, but we wanted the height in the rear. Long story short, we were able to get to R6, but it took 5 months and a lot of I don't know what you call it, but we got it done.
Patience would be one of them, and a lot.
So we can go up now. We're going up 45 feet, so we can take advantage of the bay views.
Yeah.
But Stormy has a vacation home about 20 miles away from here, so he's been coming down here. This place, I failed to tell y'all earlier. The reason I believe, I've come to find out now, that 85% of our county has been designated low income, designated opportunity zone is because you had to be in the lowest 25% income census tract, like Patrick said, based on the 2010 census data. In fact, what we have here going on is there's such a huge population of second homeowners who report their incomes in Austin and San Antonio and Dallas and Houston and all throughout Central Texas, because it's a 2.5-hour drive. And through COVID, the short-term rental here has just been setting all-time records. People want to get away, and this is where they come. We have the Blue Zone Beach, the only designated Blue Zone beach in Texas. And it's real family oriented as compared to where Stormy has his vacation property, is more of a party place. You can talk more about that.
No, I mean, it's a combination of all. Yeah, Port Aransas has become very popular, and the pricing out there has also escalated. So a lot of folks are looking into Rockport. I've got more than a half dozen friends that are either, they're either have already or in the process of buying a second home or a third home there in Rockport, or building one, or becoming a member of our Coastal Bend Opportunity Zone. So I stopped it here and paused it here just for a moment. I don't know if you can see my pointer, but that's going to be the mixed use commercial development on the front side. And you can see along the sides here, this is what we call our short-term rental component. And then our pool back in here, what do we call that? Our lazy rivers on the backside. So it's going to be beautiful and gorgeous, and have a fantastic view of the bay. And again, walking distance to pretty much anything you'd want to do, the beach, fishing, the art district, as well as the restaurants.
Bird watching, very popular here.
There we go. Okay. I was going to bring up Ashley Tyson. John, you could probably speak to, if I can find him.
Actually, how about Alex or Patrick tell who Ashley is?
Patrick, yeah, because did Patrick introduce you to Ashley?
Yeah.
The OZ Works Group did.
Yeah, Ashley Tyson was one of the very early pioneers to understanding opportunity zones. He's a lawyer in Charlotte, North Carolina, and essentially has pivoted his entire practice to now what he calls himself as the OZ Sherpa. So Ashley's a great guy. He has been down to Rockport, met John and the team, and seen the project. Ashley is a colleague of mine, and he's one of the most knowledgeable guys about OZs out there. So,
well, if I could find the video, I would share that here in a moment. It was, but I might not be.
Alex, are you chimed in and have some experience with Ashley Tyson? Any dealings?
Let me just add this perspective for what it's worth. I'd like to really give you a warm welcome here, John and Patrick. Nice to meet you, Stormy. And these are the guys that I meet with on a regular basis when we launched the OZ Works Group about a year ago. So we've developed I would say a trust relationship, at least from my perspective, relative to these guys, and the importance of belonging to a community, right? Which is similar to what we're doing here for the Royal Legal Solutions. And, I've got a couple of members here that I've already spoke about the opportunity zone, and I was waiting for the time like today for him to learn a little bit more about it, because he's very much interested in learning more about the opportunity zone. And in fact, Robert, I'm referring to you in terms of, he's already engaging, doing some development, and then he's partnering up with one of our core members as well, part of our mastermind group, who is also very heavy in investing in real estate. So that's the piece that I want to emphasize. In the spirit of full disclosure, Patrick Sugru is also my GC, my general counsel, for the businesses that we're developing right now in terms of setting up a VC fund. And Patrick is familiar with my business partner. The important thing that I want to share with you guys beyond this whole presentation is truly the relationship, and I can vouch for these guys for what it's worth. I value the community here for Royal Legal Solutions. Likewise, I value the OZ Works Group community, and so for whatever that's worth, I give them my, my full support in terms of their credibility and what they bring to the table when it comes to opportunity zone. These are good guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Were you able to get that short video up? We're getting close to our, we got another 6 or 7 minutes.
You know what?
So Ashley made a trip down here, I guess it was last month in October, and I had been to an OZ conference in Phoenix, spoke there on a panel on Monday. I think he went down to Mexico on a hunting deal. He's quite the outdoorsman.
He made it back alive, barely, remember?
Yeah, his trip to Mexico.
Remember the story?
Yep. Yeah, yeah, you know how them trips to Mexico sometimes turn out. Well, you were just there, Alex. Cancun, so you weren't really you're in the tourist area.
That's right. We enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a great place.
Well, John, now that it always popped up on my feed through
That's
Facebook.
okay.
So
Right.
it was about 45 seconds, and yes, it's good. Not necessarily
Yeah,
accurate. We talked about refineries, and that's not a thing in Rockport, Texas.
Yeah, I don't think I finished my statement regarding why I determined so much of the county as opportunity zone. And you have to be low income census tract. I think I did say that there's so many second homeowners who report their incomes in other parts of primarily Texas. But the people that work here, I mean, that live here are retirees, so they tend to have not that much earned income to report. And then the community is very low income. 64% of the students are on some sort of food subsidy at the school district. And that's kind of ironic because it's a very property rich, wealthy school district who's given a lot of money back to the state or to other school districts because we're considered property rich, yet our incomes are in the lowest 25% in the state of Texas. So it's all a bit of an anomaly. It's a very nice destination, and the Blue Zone Resort is the first of hopefully many other projects we're going to venture off into. I enjoyed the presentation earlier from Dan, who's focused on the RVs, the storage space, and also that's on our horizon to develop some of that. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for y'all's attention. We're going to open this up for Q&A. Hopefully, we'll defer most of any technical procedural questions to Patrick. I want to share, y'all, please raise your hand if you have a question, interrupt me, but it made me think the last 3 days of a principle that's kind of guided my life since I was 21 years old. Went to work for a combined American insurance company owned by W. Clement Stone. One of the things that I keep to this day, what came up during this summit, and that is, you can have anything in life you want if you help enough other people get what they want, as long as you don't violate the will of God or the rights of your fellow man. And I heard something similar to that these last 3 days, and it's certainly a truth that has helped shape my life, and I want to just share that. He's also probably you've heard of W. Clement Stone. He's a do it now, success through PMA, positive mental attitude. I was fortunate enough to work for his company for 5 years. Never met him until I quit, and he came to Austin. I interviewed him, and he wrote me a handwritten letter as he flew out of Austin. But he lived to 100 years old. He was chairman of the Chicago Boys Club, or National Boys Club of America, but he was from Chicago. So we'll open up any questions on opportunity zones.
John, I want to mention two other things. You know, we're doing the other thing that appealed to me was that what the opportunity zones are all about. You know, the core is to what? Help those underdeveloped, undercapitalized areas across the country. So that was something that appealed to me, as well as obviously the tax incentives in the return. And one thing they did not factor in is, if anybody's country and Western fan, George Strait has had a home in Rockport for, I think, 30 plus years there. It's a beautiful, beautiful home. And they did not count his income in the census. So if they did, it would be a whole different ballgame, I'm sure.
Yeah. Go ahead, Patrick. You got something to add?
Yeah, no, I can't wait to get down there and maybe run into Mr. George Strait. Love his music. Who doesn't?
Yeah,
but no, I just wanted to say that so to learn more about it, I posted a couple of links to some resources. One is the IRS FAQs on opportunity zones. The other is a great resource. It's a website called Opportunity DB, D as in data, B as in base.com. That is a podcast and a lot of resources to learn more about the area. The one thing I'll say, if anybody's interested in, it's like, you know, okay, I have a capital gain, I'm going to sell stock, sold my business, selling real estate. I don't want to reinvest in real estate. You know, what are the rules? Well, essentially, remember this. You have a period of time, and that period of time is 180 days from the time that you close your transaction that results in a capital gain in order to reinvest that gain or an amount equal to that gain or whatever amount of it you want to defer into what's called a qualified opportunity fund, like John's program, or you can do your own if you want. Now, if you happen to have that gain come through a Form K-1 from a partnership LLC or an S corporation, you're going to have additional time. It's essentially going to be 180 days from the time you get your K-1, and that entity has to report in the following March. So you got a lot more time on a K-1. But if you have any of those questions, get a hold of John or myself. I don't know if I posted anything in there, and Stormy as well, because he's answering questions about this all the time. That's the operative number: 180 days from realizing a capital gain to get busy and invested in a QOF, qualified opportunity fund.
Go ahead,
Quick
Jeffrey.
question on that, Patrick. So let's say you sold a real estate this year in an LLC. You're saying that if the K-1s come out next year in March, you can still have 180 days from when that K-1 comes out, which is probably March, April, because they always come out late.
It's 180 days from the time that that LLC has to file its entity return without extensions, and that would be March 15th. So your 180 days would run into the middle of September of 2023.
Okay, so in that scenario, with the flow through then the different entities, ownership in the LLC, they would be be paying taxes potentially on it for 2022, but they invested in 2023 in the opportunity zone. How would that, would you be getting a tax back then the following year? Or?
No, you can't get it back. What happens is in Jeff, let's say you're going to invest that gain, and you're not going to pay tax on it in 2022. There's a form that you would fill out, a 4696, or I can't remember the name. I'm not an accountant. There's a form you file, Jeff, with your own personal tax return saying, hey, I have this capital gain transaction, but I ain't paying tax on it. I'm deferring it to an opportunity zone deal. And that goes with your taxes, and the IRS knows not to tax you on that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Timely do that investment, and then in the following year.
That's really neat. Thank you.
I'll add to that. If the sale, the taxable event is in 23, and you have all the way to, what was it, October, you can, a lot of people are splitting it up amongst multiple funds to create some diversification. And it's not an all or nothing. You can defer some of your gain, all your gain, none of your bases. It's a lot more flexible in that respect to a 1031, for example. I do need to, I don't think we disclosed here anywhere that our fund is a 506C and is only available to accredited investors. And I'm pretty sure everybody on here knows what that means, and happy to explain if you don't. But because we filed under the exemption of 506C, we're allowed to advertise or market, and but the investors have to be accredited. Okay.
I'm going to do something a little bit more proactive here, and I hope Robert doesn't mind this. And I thought it was very appropriate and timely that we had done on the 1031, that did a thorough presentation on 1031 versus the opportunity zone. And when Robert and I had exchanged with our group, and he was looking at the opportunity zone, trying to compare apples to apples or whatever, and look at the benefit of it. I wonder if that would be something that would be appropriate, Robert, that we could share with the group, perhaps in your conclusion relative to the 1031 option versus the opportunity zone. And then, since we've got the opportunity zone guys here, can kind of zero in on some of the key distinct pluses or minus, if you will, between these two, if you don't mind, Robert. You there?
Are you sure? Are you sure Robert's here?
Robert Vail.
Yeah, he bailed.
Well, it's possible that they're on and sometimes they're not here, they're not
Step
there, but
away.
yeah.
Yep.
So in any case, I thought that that was something that might be appropriate subject matter, since a lot of the people here are really in real estate investing, and the difference between the 1031 and the opportunity zone. And one of the key component that I think was Robert had mentioned and shared with us was that the fact that you could just defer the capital gains in the opportunity zone, so not necessarily the entire principal of the other investment that you have to roll over, and that's a
Right.
significant difference in what you could do with that, right?
Yeah, you're right, Alex. That is a big factor. In an opportunity zone deferral, the basis that you get back in your sale transaction is not taxable anyway. So you can take that and do anything you want with it. You just take an amount equal to the amount of the gain from that transaction that you'd like to defer and invest it in a QOF like Coastal Bend Opportunity Fund. So you get to play with, take the basis right away. In a 1031, all of the proceeds have to be quarantined through a qualified intermediary. The Opportunity Zone program is self-certified, self-policing. You can do the transaction without ever hearing about opportunity zones to get your original gain. But as long as you learn about it within that timely 180-day period or longer period through a K1, you can then make a qualifying investment. Even if you spent all the proceeds on something else, you go to the bank, borrow against your house, borrow against your stock portfolio, invest the amount of the gain in a timely way in a qualified opportunity fund, and you've got yourself an investment with a tax exclusion after a 10-year hold.
And Patrick, the other thing that I think might be relevant would be the timeline. You addressed that, but specifically, let's make a distinction between the capital gains that gets invested in a qualified opportunity fund and the timeline when the fund then inside or the money that's inside the fund can be invested in the qualified opportunity zone business. Because I think that's an important distinction in terms of the timeline between a 1031 and a OZ. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely, Alex. And you have been attending the QOZ material programs very, very well, because you understand this extremely well. So to defer your gain as an individual investor, you invest the amount of the gain you would like to defer into a qualified opportunity fund within the 180 days or 180 days after your K1 entity reporting date. Now, what does an opportunity fund do? It can develop a property or hold a property in a trade or business, but almost always it is advisable for that opportunity fund to invest in what's called a qualified opportunity zone business. And that business can be an operating business. It does not have to be real estate development, but we're seeing a ton of great real estate projects in the program. So the fund has 180 days from the time it receives that investment from the investor into the QOF, into the fund. The fund has 180 days to deploy it into one or more qualifying investments and opportunity zone businesses or properties, and it can do it into a portfolio of them. So the answer is 180 days from the time the fund receives the money.
And the third part to this then, Patrick, is that speak to the self-directed qualified opportunity fund, how you as an individual with capital gains create your own QOF, and you in turn will have the opportunity then to invest in qualified opportunity zone business.
Right. That's a great point, Alex. And I have a number of clients who have said, look, I've found 2-3 funds that I like. And John mentioned this, I'm going to diversify. I like Coastal Bend. I like this other one up in the Northeast, and I like this one out in Dan's area in Colorado. But I also would like to, I'd like to invest in my son or my daughter or my family's business that they're going to start, which can be located anywhere, and we might as well locate it in an opportunity zone. So can I do that? Can I spread it out? The answer is yes. And you can be in high quality managed funds that you don't have to worry about managing, or you can establish your own qualified opportunity fund as a family office or your own personal, what we call self-directed qualified opportunity fund that can then turn around and invest in your own business as long as it qualifies and has a nexus to the opportunity zone. or a family business or anybody's business that qualifies as an opportunity zone business. And it doesn't have to be one, it could be several there as well.
And the last
Patrick, can
point,
you,
go ahead, John.
I'm sorry, I thought you might could add about the time horizon to deploy that capital is very considerable.
Right. The reason that the industry has developed a best practice of developing real estate, for example, in the Blue Zone Resort project through a qualified opportunity zone business, which is not a wholly owned subsidiary, but a very 99% owned subsidiary, is because the regulations, which are 190 pages and quite complex, they give you a safe harbor for holding cash and cash equivalents for a period of time up to 62 months for several infusions of cash to develop that property in a manner that you won't trigger a sort of disqualification, which is having more than 5% of a opportunity zone business's property being in sort of financial assets. There's a safe harbor called a working capital safe harbor that these qualified opportunity zone businesses have if they follow the rules and have a working capital safe harbor plan like John, you do, to be able to go up to 62 months to deploy that capital and still be compliant and have that investment be a good qualifying investment for a Coastal Bend Opportunity Fund or for a self-directed fund that may want to invest in your type of a project.
I got another question. In regards to this here, whether it's John's fund, I don't know a whole lot about, I'll have to look into it, or a different real estate venture and opportunity zone. Normally in some of these things, you would place whatever, $100,000 and say to offset that you're going to hold it for in there. And obviously the plan is to keep it there for at least 10 years so that you get, but I would assume that if the business is operating, things are going well, that then there would be some type of distributions that would kick off throughout that. Is that normally the case, even in opportunity zones, such that you would get a return on the investment? You don't have to wait the entire 10 years. So whether it's a 6% or 8% per year or something, and of course that would be taxed then at a passive income and you would deal with that, but your money would still be locked up and deferred. Is that kind of the case that we're talking about with John's and these other ones too?
Jeff, you're exactly right. The gain, the exclusion after a 10-year hold is for the capital gain of the appreciating investment. Income generated during the holding period will be taxable to, just like to any investor in the deal. It's a gain exclusion, not an income exclusion.
Yeah.
Now I will say this, and this is significant. This is a big real estate group. I think people are familiar with the concept of depreciation recapture in a real estate deal, especially if you've taken accelerated depreciation or bonus depreciation. The IRS is going to come back and say that portion of your depreciation that you took that would exceed what they would call straight line depreciation is going to be charged back as what they call recapture income. And with the gain exclusion after a 10-year hold, they do not reclassify any recapture. It all stays gain, all excluded. The other thing with regard to your question, Jeff, about the income coming out from rentals or whatever in that real estate project, like the Blue Zone Resort, it's operating income distributions. Remember, it does have the ability to take depreciation and other business expenses against that income, like any other real estate partnership.
Okay. So this actual one,
Jeff, I'm typing some information regarding the return. Okay, the projected return in the chat, but go ahead.
No, that's fine. Go ahead, John.
I wanted to just add, if we have time, Tammy, I don't recall if somebody's behind us, and I guess we're not having any breakout, but if we have time, Patrick, can you talk about the strategy of cash out refi in year 3, year 4, whenever, and how that's not taxed?
Yeah, real quick. For a real estate project, like for example, John's, the strategy with a lot of real estate projects is once the project is built, constructed, certificate of occupancy, commissioned, and begins operating, then it is ripe to be refied with permanent debt. A lot of the developers will use that permanent debt to make a tax distribution to the opportunity zone investors who invested in the deal to be able to pay their capital gains tax due in 2026 on their original investment. And so that is often the strategy employed in real estate deals, is to do a as commissioned refi, take that tax distribution from the project and pay your tax due in 2026. Still keeping that holding period going towards your gain exclusion on additional appreciation.
Thanks. Yeah, and that's, I'd like to refer to it, it's incurred in 26, but you don't pay it till 2027.
Right,
when
in
that
your
tax is
2027 tax return. Okay, great.
Does that cover anything else, Jeff, or anyone else?
Yeah, that triggered a few more things, but I think we're out of time. I'll go read up on it. So it's pretty interesting.
It
Wonderful.
is, and together with 1031s, for those of you folks that have real estate gains, hey, 1031's always a great option. So is opportunity zones. But if you're liquidating out of your crypto and you got gains, you're going to want to look at opportunity zone investment.